The day extraterrestrials discovered why you never dare Terrans. Part 1. The challenge. The Great Hall of the Galactic Concord was the largest building ever made by any species in the known universe. It floated in the empty space between three star systems, and its walls were made of living crystal that changed color with the mood of whoever was speaking. Today, those walls had turned a deep, angry red. Ambassador Krixveth of the Varanti Dominion stood at the central platform. His body was made of purple crystal, shaped roughly like a human but taller and sharper. When he moved, he made a sound like wind chimes in a storm. When he spoke, his words came out as music that the translation machines turned into language everyone could understand. "Fellow members of the Concord," he said, and his voice filled every corner of the massive hall. "I come before you today to speak about a great injustice. 847 species had representatives in this hall. Some were made of gas. Some were made of metal. Some looked like insects, others like fish, and a few looked like nothing any human had ever imagined. They all turned their attention to the Varanti ambassador. 300 years ago, we discovered a small blue planet at the edge of the galaxy. The creatures there were primitive. They had barely learned to leave their own world. They fought wars with each other. They poisoned their own air and water. They were, by any measure, a species of children. The walls of the hall shifted to a darker red. The Varanti ambassador was not hiding his anger. And yet this Concord chose to welcome them, to give them the same status as species who have been civilized for millions of years, to treat them as equals. He pointed one sharp crystal finger toward the far side of the hall where the human delegation sat. "I speak, of course, of the Terrans, the humans, and I say that their presence here is an insult to every species that has earned their place through time and wisdom and achievement." The human delegation was small compared to most. Only 12 people sat in the section marked with Earth's flag. They wore simple gray uniforms, and they did not react to the ambassador's words. At their center sat Director Chen Wei-Lin, a woman of 70 years with silver hair and calm eyes. She had led humanity's diplomatic missions for 3 decades, and she had heard worse things than this. The Varanti Dominion therefore issues a formal challenge of supremacy, Ambassador Krixveth announced. A gasp went through the hall. The walls flickered between red and yellow, showing the surprise of the translating crystals. A challenge of supremacy had not been issued in over 2,000 years. "We propose a trial of 7, the ambassador continued. 7 challenges across 7 domains of competition. If the humans win 4 or more, they keep their membership and their status. If they fail, their membership is ended. Their systems will be placed under Varanti protection, and they will learn what it means to earn respect in this galaxy." Director Chun stood up slowly. Every ion sensor and receptor in the hall turned toward her. "May I speak?" she asked. The Concord speaker, a being made of swirling golden light, gave permission with a wave of its form. "Ambassador Krixveth," Director Chen said, her voice steady and clear. "You say we are children. You say we have not earned our place. Perhaps you are right. We are young. We have made many mistakes. We are still learning what it means to be part of something larger than ourselves." She paused and looked around the hall at the hundreds of alien species watching her. "But we are also stubborn, and we do not refuse challenges." She turned back to face the Varanti ambassador directly. "We accept your trial of 7. Name your challenges. We will meet them." The hall erupted into noise. Translation machines struggled to keep up with hundreds of species, all talking at once. The walls of the hall shifted through every color of the rainbow dot in the observation galleries above. Veteran diplomats from a dozen species shook their heads in disbelief. They had seen the Varanti do this before, many centuries ago. The crystalline species had never lost a trial of 7. Their challenges were always designed to favor Varanti's strengths, and they had crushed every opponent who had been foolish enough to accept. "The humans have no idea what they have agreed to," said one observer. "An insect-like being from a species called the Ven. The Varanti will destroy them." "They are young," agreed another, a floating sphere of blue gas. "They do not understand how this works." Down in the main hall, Ambassador Crixfeth was smiling. At least, his crystal face had rearranged itself into something that his species used to show pleasure. "Very well," he said. "The first 3 challenges will test the domains of mind, memory, and body. Mathematical computation, harmonic recall, and survival in the void of space." Director Chun nodded. "And the remaining 4? Strategic combat simulation, environmental adaptation, predator evasion, and finally, the trial of will." The ambassador's smile grew wider. "Unless, of course, the humans wish to withdraw before embarrassing themselves further." "We do not withdraw," Director Chun said simply. "Then it is decided. The trial of 7 will begin in 30 standard days. May the superior species win." As the hall began to empty, Director Chun gathered her delegation around her. They walked together through the long corridors of the Concorde station, past members of species that had been traveling the stars when humans were still living in caves. "Director," said her aide, a young man named James Okafor, "you know what he's done. Those first 3 challenges are impossible for us. Varanti can calculate faster than our best computers. Their memory is perfect, and they can survive in space without any protection at all." "Yes," Director Chen agreed. "We will lose those 3 challenges. Then why did you accept? If we lose 4, we lose everything." Director Chun stopped walking. She looked at her young aide with eyes that had seen humanity rise from a single planet to 100 worlds. "James, do you know why the Varanti really hate us? It is not because we are young. It is not because we are primitive. It is because we scare them." "Scare them? How could we possibly scare beings who have been powerful for 1,000,000 years? Because we grew too fast. Because we spread too quickly. Because every time they thought they understood us, we did something they did not expect." She smiled, and there was something fierce in that smile. "They think these challenges will break us. They have designed tests that play to their strengths. But they have made one mistake." "What mistake?" "They dared us." Director Chun started walking again. "And humans have never responded well to dares. We do not become careful. We do not become cautious. We become determined. We become creative. We become dangerous." She looked out a window at the stars beyond. "Let them have their 3 victories. The last 4 challenges are combat, adaptation, evasion, and will. Those are not just Varanti domains, James. Those are the domains where humanity has been training since before we learned to make fire." "You planned this," James realized. "You wanted them to choose those challenges." "I simply knew what they would choose. The Varanti are predictable. They think in straight lines. They cannot imagine a species that would accept certain defeat in order to reach uncertain victory." She paused. "But that is exactly what humans do. We have been doing it for 40,000 years. In 30 days, the trial of 7 would begin, and the galaxy would learn what happened when you dared a Terran. The day extraterrestrials discovered why you never dare Terrans. Part 2. The Impossible Odds. The first challenge took place on a platform that floated in the center of a hollow moon. Millions of beings watched through screens across the galaxy. Billions more followed through data feeds. The Trial of 7 had become the most watched event in Concorde history. The challenge was called the Calculation Spiral. 2 contestants would face each other across a table of light. Mathematical problems would appear before them, starting simple and growing more complex with each round. Whoever solved more problems faster would win. If a contestant failed 3 problems in a row, they were eliminated. The Varanti contestant was called Threshnell. His crystalline body had been grown specifically for mathematical thought. His brain, if it could be called that, was a perfect lattice of quantum computing crystals that could process numbers at speeds approaching light itself. The human contestant was Dr. Yuki Tanaka. She was 34 years old, born in Kyoto, and had won every mathematics prize Earth had to offer. Her mind was considered one of the finest humanity had ever produced. Against any human opponent, she would have been unbeatable. Against Threshnell, she never had a chance. The early rounds were close. Simple arithmetic, basic algebra, geometry problems that both contestants solved in fractions of a second. But as the problems grew more complex, the gap began to show. By round 5, Threshnell was finishing problems before Dr. Tanaka had finished reading them. By round 7, she was 3 failures behind. "I'm sorry," she said to Director Chun after her elimination. There were tears in her eyes. "I tried. I really tried." "You did exactly what we needed," Director Chun told her gently. "You showed them that we would fight. That matters more than you know." The second challenge was harmonic recall. Contestants had to listen to sequences of musical tones and reproduce them perfectly. Each round added more tones, more complexity, more subtle variations that only the most sensitive ears could detect. The Varanti were beings of living crystal. They communicated through resonance and vibration. Music was not just something they enjoyed. It was their language, their culture, their very identity. They could hear and reproduce sounds that no human ear could even detect. The human contestant, a young musician named David Euleron, lasted 19 rounds. It was longer than anyone had expected. He had trained with neural implants that enhanced his hearing and memory. He had practiced for months until he could hear sounds that would have been invisible to normal human ears. But 19 rounds was not enough. The Varanti contestant completed all 30 rounds without a single mistake. 2 challenges lost. 2-0. The third challenge was the worst dot. It was called the Endurance Void. Contestants would be placed in hard vacuum, the empty space between stars, without any protective equipment. They would stay there until they could no longer survive. Whoever lasted longer won. The Varanti had evolved in space. Their crystalline bodies did not need air. They did not need warmth. They could exist in the cold, emptiness between worlds as easily as humans walked through a garden. The human contestant was a man named Viktor Volkov. He had been modified with every enhancement human science could provide. His skin had been hardened. His blood had been filled with oxygen-carrying compounds. His body temperature could drop to near freezing without killing him. None of it was enough. Victor Volkov survived 11 minutes in the void. His body fought with everything it had. His heart kept beating long after it should have stopped. His brain kept working, even as the cold tried to shut it down. 11 minutes of pure human stubbornness against the endless cold of space. The Varanti contestant lasted 47 hours. 3-0. Across the galaxy, the news feeds were already writing humanity's ending. Commentators from 100 species discussed how the humans would be absorbed into the Varanti dominion. Economists calculated the value of Earth's resources. Politicians debated whether the Concord should intervene. The remaining challenges are merely a formality, Ambassador Kriksveth announced to the gathered press. We have already proven that the Terrans are not ready for a galactic civilization. Perhaps in another 1,000,000 years, they will have evolved enough to try again. In the human delegation's quarters, the mood was very different. Director Chun stood before her team. Viktor Volkov was there, still recovering from his time in the void, wrapped in heated blankets but refusing to miss this meeting. Dr. Tanaka was there, her eyes red but her spine straight. David Eulerin was there, already studying data on the remaining challenges. "We have lost 3 challenges," Director Chun said. This was expected. This was planned. And now, the real trial begins. She activated a holographic display that showed the 4 remaining challenges. Strategic combat simulation, environmental adaptation, predator evasion, the trial of will. She looked at each member of her team. These are the challenges that matter. And these are the challenges we will win. "How can you be so sure?" asked James Okafor. "The Varanthi have won these challenges before. They have beaten dozens of species." "Yes, they have. But they have never faced humans." Director Chun pulled up data on her display. "Look at their victories. Every species they have beaten approached these challenges logically, carefully. They tried to match Varanthi's strength with their own strength. And that's wrong?" James asked. "For us, yes. Humans do not win by matching strength against strength. We win by changing the rules, by doing what our opponents never expected, by being too stubborn, too creative, and too crazy to know when we should give up." She pulled up a profile of their next contestant. A Korean woman in military uniform, her face calm and her eyes sharp. General Park Sun-hye has commanded human forces for 40 years. She has fought in jungles and deserts and orbital platforms. She has won battles that computers said were unwinnable. And she has a philosophy that the Varanthi will never understand. "What philosophy?" Victor asked through chattering teeth. "Attack. Always attack. Never give your enemy time to think. Never let them use their advantages. Hit them fast, hit them hard, and keep hitting them until they break." Director Chun smiled that fierce smile again. "The Varanthi think they know what war is. They have studied it for 1,000,000 years. But they have never faced a species that has been fighting itself since before it learned to write. They have never faced warriors who charge towards certain death because the alternative is surrender. They have never faced the descendants of people who crossed oceans in wooden boats just to see what was on the other side." She closed her display. "Tomorrow, the 4th challenge begins. And tomorrow, the galaxy will learn why the universe should be very, very careful about daring humanity." The team dispersed to prepare. As they left, James noticed Director Chan standing alone by the window, looking out at the stars. "Director, are you worried?" She turned to him with calm eyes. "No, James, I am excited. We have waited 300 years for a moment like this. 300 years of being treated as children by species who should know better." She looked back at the stars. "Tomorrow, we stop being children. And the Varanthi will finally understand the mistake they have made." The day Extraterrestrials discovered why you never dare Terrans. Part 3. The Terran response to the 4th challenge was strategic combat simulation. 2 commanders would lead virtual armies against each other in a computer-generated battlefield. The armies were equal in size and strength. Victory depended only on skill, strategy, and will. The Varanthi commander was called Crixenal, a military genius who had never lost a simulation in 800 years. His species had perfected the art of war long before humans had learned to farm. Their tactics were studied in military academies across the galaxy. Their strategies were considered the highest form of combat thinking. The human commander was General Park Sun-hye. The simulation began at noon. Concord Standard Time. Both commanders started with identical forces: 10,000 ground troops, 500 armored vehicles, 50 aircraft, and 1 command ship. The battlefield was a rocky planet with mountains, valleys, and a single river running through the center. Standard Galactic military doctrine said that the first phase of any battle should be reconnaissance. Send scouts. Learn the terrain. Understand the enemy's position. Only then When you had perfect information, should you begin your advance? Crixnall followed this doctrine perfectly. He sent his scouts forward in careful patterns, beginning to map the enemy's locations. He positioned his forces in defensive formations, ready to respond to any attack. He prepared for a long, careful battle of positioning and counter-positioning. General Park attacked in the first 30 seconds. She had divided her forces into 3 groups before the simulation even started. While Crixnall was still sending out his scouts, her first group hit his western flank with everything it had. Tanks, troops, and aircraft all struck at once, punching through his defensive line before it was fully formed. Crixnall responded quickly, turning forces to face the attack. But as he did, Park's second group struck from the east, and her third group, which had been moving through a mountain pass at full speed, emerged behind his command position. "This is impossible," Crixnall said, his crystalline voice sharp with confusion. "No commander attacks without reconnaissance. No strategy calls for such aggression." But General Park had not come to follow galactic doctrine. She had come to win. The battle lasted 4 hours and 17 minutes. Every time Crixnall tried to stabilize his lines, Park attacked somewhere else. When he concentrated his forces to meet one threat, she split hers into 3 and surrounded him. When he retreated to defensive positions, she gave him no time to dig in. She did not fight like a chess player, moving pieces in careful patterns. She fought like a storm, hitting everywhere at once, never stopping, never pausing, never giving her enemy a moment to breathe. When the simulation ended, the Varanthi commander had lost 92% of his forces. General Park had lost 40% of hers. How? Crixnall demanded in the post-battle analysis. "Your strategy was reckless, inefficient. You lost soldiers you did not need to lose." "I won," General Park replied simply. "But the cost? There is only winning and losing. Everything else is just numbers." The Varanthi commander stared at her with his crystal eyes. "Your species is insane." "Yes," General Park agreed. "We are." The score was now 3-1. Humanity was still losing, but they were no longer being destroyed. The 5th challenge was environmental adaptation. Contestants would be placed in hostile environments and scored on how long they survived and how many tasks they completed. 3 environments, each more deadly than the last. The Varanthi contestant had been engineered for survival. His crystal body could resist extreme heat, extreme cold, high pressure, and toxic atmospheres. He was as close to indestructible as biology could make. The human contestant was Carlos Mendoza, a mountaineer from Peru. He had no special modifications, no engineering, just 50 years of experience surviving in places that should have killed him. Environment. One was a desert world with surface temperatures of 60 degrees Celsius. The air was thin. The sun was brutal. Water did not exist. The Varanthi contestant walked steadily toward his objectives, his crystal body reflecting the harsh light. He completed his tasks efficiently, without visible stress, without apparent difficulty. Carlos Mendoza stripped off most of his clothes. He covered his head with a white cloth. He calculated the angle of the sun and planned his route to maximize shade. He moved during the cooler parts of the day and rested during the worst heat. He rationed his water with the precision of someone who understood exactly how much his body needed. He completed all his tasks while singing old folk songs from his homeland. Environment 2 was a frozen moon covered in methane ice. The temperature was -180 degrees Celsius. The Varanthi contestant began showing stress fractures in his crystal body. He completed his tasks, but slowly, carefully, fighting against the cold that threatened to shatter him. Carlos Mendoza built a shelter from ice blocks. He did jumping exercises to keep his blood moving. He talked to himself constantly, keeping his mind active so that it would not surrender to the cold. His fingers turned blue. His toes went numb. But he kept moving, kept working, kept refusing to stop. He completed all his tasks while composing poetry in his head. Environment. 3 was a volcanic world with twice Earth's gravity and an atmosphere of sulfuric acid. The Voranthi contestant's crystal body began to crack under the pressure. His movements became slow and painful. He completed half his tasks before he could no longer continue. Carlos Mendoza crawled. The gravity pressed down on him like a giant hand. Every breath burned his lungs. Blood ran from his nose and ears. His muscles screamed with every movement. But he would not stop. He pulled himself forward on his belly, inch by inch, reaching for each objective with fingers that could barely grip. He completed all his tasks with blood dripping from his face and a grin that would not die. How? The Voranthi contestant asked as they were evacuated to medical care. You have no modifications. No special adaptations. How do you survive what should kill you? Carlos Mendoza, wrapped in medical blankets and surrounded by worried doctors, looked at his opponent with eyes that had seen the top of Everest and the bottom of the deepest caves. I am human, he said simply. Surviving is what we do. The score was now 3-2. One more victory, and humanity would tie. 2 more, and they would win. Across the galaxy, the betting odds were shifting. Species who had dismissed humanity as certain losers were now watching with new interest. Commentators who had predicted Voranthi dominance were now speaking carefully, hedging their predictions. Something was changing. Something that no one had expected. In the human delegation quarters, Director Chun watched the celebrations with quiet satisfaction. Her team had fought back from the edge of destruction. They had shown the galaxy that humans would not break easily, but the hardest challenges were still to come. Director, James Okafor said, reading a message on his tablet. We have received the details of the 6th challenge. Predator evasion. Tell me, contestants will be released into a wilderness filled with apex predators from across the galaxy. Creatures bred to hunt, track, and kill. Survival time is measured until elimination or until the 72-hour limit is reached. Director Chun nodded slowly. And our contestant? He's ready. He says he's been preparing for this his entire life. Who is he? His name is Amandi Kimani. He is a tracker from Kenya. He grew up walking among lions. Director Chun smiled. Perfect. The day extraterrestrials discovered why you never dare Terrans. Part 4. The hunters become the hunted. The hunting ground was an artificial world, built specifically for the Predator Evasion Challenge. It had forests and plains, rivers and mountains, caves and swamps. Every environment that could hide prey or help. Predators had been included, and in those environments lived the deadliest creatures the galaxy had ever produced. There were serrated hunters. From the death world of Crix, pack predators with 6 legs and teeth that could cut through steel. There were shadow stalkers from the eternal night of Ven 7, blind creatures that hunted by sensing the electrical signals of their prey's nervous system. There were acid spitters, bone crushers, silent wings, and a dozen other species whose only purpose was to hunt and kill. 14 contestants had died in previous Predator Evasion challenges. 43 had been permanently injured. The record survival time was 68 hours. Held by a Voranthi contestant who had hidden so perfectly that the predators could not find him. Amandi Kimani stood at the entrance to the hunting ground, wearing simple clothes and carrying nothing but a small knife. No weapons were allowed. No technology. Just the contestant and the wild. Any final words before you enter? The Concord official asked. Amandi looked out at the wilderness before him. Somewhere in those trees, creatures were waiting to tear him apart. I grew up walking among lions, he said calmly. This is just a bigger savanna. He stepped through the entrance, and the challenge began. The first 12 hours went as expected. Both Amandi and the Voranti contestant avoided contact with the predators. The Voranti, named Crystalline Shade, found an elevated position among some rocks and became perfectly still. His purple crystal body looked exactly like the stones around him. Without movement or heat or scent, he was nearly invisible. Amandi took a different approach. He moved. He did not run. He did not hide. He walked through the wilderness with the calm confidence of someone who belonged there. When he encountered predator tracks, he studied them. When he found territorial markings, he noted them carefully. When he heard hunting calls in the distance, he changed his route. The observation drones followed him with growing confusion. What was he doing? Why wasn't he hiding? He's learning, said Dr. Sarah Chun, the human behavioral specialist on the observation team. He's not just trying to survive. He's trying to understand. By hour 20, Amandi had mapped most of the hunting ground in his head. He knew where the pack predators hunted. He knew where the ambush predators waited. He knew the paths that were safe and the paths that were death. And he moved through all of them like a ghost dot by hour 30. The predators had started to notice something strange. There was a creature in their territory that did not act like prey. It did not run. It did not hide. It walked with purpose, and it seemed to know where they would be before they arrived. By hour 40, the predators were confused. Their instincts told them this creature was food. But their instincts also told them that something was wrong. This creature was not afraid. This creature looked at them with eyes that understood. The moment that changed everything came at hour 40-7.omond. I was walking through a narrow canyon when a pack of serrated hunters appeared at both ends. 6 creatures, each one designed for killing, trapped him with nowhere to run. Every observer expected him to die. Amandi stopped walking. He turned to face the alpha of the pack, a massive creature with scars from 100 kills. He looked directly into its eyes, and he did not look away. In the observation room, Dr. Sarah Chun grabbed the arm of the official next to her. "Watch," she whispered. "Watch what he does." Amandi stood perfectly still. His breathing was slow and controlled. His body language showed no fear, no submission, no retreat. He simply stood and stared. The alpha serrated hunter circled him. It growled, showing teeth that could tear him in half. It stepped closer, testing him, waiting for the fear response that all prey showed. But Amandi had spent his childhood among lions. He knew what predators looked for. He knew the signals that said prey and the signals that said threat. And he knew that the most important signal of all was confidence. He took one step forward. The alpha stopped circling. Something in its ancient predator brain was confused. Prey did not step forward. Prey ran. Prey fought. Prey begged for mercy. Prey did not walk toward death with calm eyes. Amandi took another step forward. The pack began to shift nervously. They looked to their alpha for guidance, but the alpha was uncertain. This creature was not following the rules. This creature was doing something that no prey had ever done before. Amandi took a third step forward, and the alpha backed away. One by one, the pack members retreated. They did not understand what was happening, but their instincts were telling them that this creature was not food. This creature was something else. Something dangerous. Something that did not fear death. Amandi walked through the pack without a scratched dot in the observation room. 20 different species sat in stunned silence. What just happened? Demanded the Concord official. Dr. Sarah Chun was crying, but she was also smiling. 40,000 years, she said. 40,000 years of being both predator and prey. We learned to hunt, but we also learned to be hunted. We learned to read animals better than they can read themselves. That man did not hide from those creatures. He did not fight them. He dominated them through pure presence. "That's impossible," the official said. "No prey species can dominate apex predators through presence alone." "Humans are not a prey species," Dr. Chun replied. "We are not a predator species either. We are both. We learn to think like the hunter and the hunted at the same time. And that makes us something that the galaxy has never seen before." Amandi Kamani walked out of the hunting ground at hour 71 with no injuries. He had never once hidden. He had never once run. He had simply walked through a wilderness full of killers as if he owned it. The Varanthi contestant, Crystalline Shade, was found and killed at hour 64. A burrowing predator had detected the tiny vibrations of his crystalline respiration and attacked from below. He had been so focused on being invisible that he forgot to watch for threats from unexpected directions. The score was now 3-3. Ambassador Krixveth demanded an investigation. He demanded a recount. He demanded that the challenge be declared invalid. But the Concord officials found no violations. Amandi had simply done what no one had expected. He had refused to be prey. "One challenge remains," Director Chun told her team that night. "The trial of will. If we win this, we win everything." "And if we lose?" James asked. "Then we tie, and we keep our membership by default." Director Chun shook her head. "But I do not want to tie. I want to win. I want the galaxy to remember this day forever." She looked at the profile of their final contestant. An old woman. A survivor. A grandmother who had seen more pain than anyone should have to endure. "Maria Santos," Director Chun said quietly. "The galaxy thinks the trial of will is about strength. They think it is about resisting fear. But Maria knows the truth." "What truth?" "Fear is not the enemy. Fear is just a feeling. And humans have spent 40,000 years learning that feelings cannot kill us unless we let them. Tomorrow would be the final challenge. Tomorrow, humanity would either prove itself to the galaxy or fade back into obscurity." Director Chun looked out at the stars and smiled. She knew which one it would be. The day extraterrestrials discovered why you never dare Terrans. Part 5. The trial of will. The trial of will was the Varanthi's most feared weapon. For 1,000,000 years, they had used it to break their enemies without firing a single shot. Their fear resonance projectors could broadcast frequencies that reached directly into the brain of any creature, triggering primal terror that no amount of training could resist. Species with advanced mental disciplines could endure for hours. The unprepared collapsed in seconds. No one had ever won this challenge against the Varanthi. The arena was a simple room with white walls. In the center stood a chair. Around the chair, arranged in a circle, were 27 resonance projectors, each one capable of generating fear beyond anything nature had ever created. Maria Santos walked into the arena slowly. She was 73 years old. Her hair was white. Her hands were wrinkled. She wore a simple dress, and she carried nothing but a small photograph in her pocket. The Varanthi resonance. Master examined her biological readings with amusement. Her stress hormones were already elevated. Her neural patterns showed clear trauma markers. Her fear response centers were highly active even before the test began. "This is their champion?" Ambassador Krixveth asked from the observation gallery. "An old woman who's already afraid?" "This will be over in moments." Maria sat down in the chair. She looked at the projectors around her without expression. "Are you ready?" the resonance master asked. "I have been ready for 40 years," Maria replied. The projectors activated. The fear that flooded through Maria's mind was beyond description. It was not like being scared of a spider or nervous before a speech. It was pure, absolute terror, the kind that made every cell in her body scream for her to run, to hide, to do anything to make it stop. Her heart rate spiked to dangerous levels. Her hands gripped the arms of the chair so hard that her knuckles turned white. Tears began to flow down her cheeks, and she began to breathe in, out, in, out. The observation team watched her biological readings with growing disbelief. The fear was overwhelming her systems. Every part of her brain that processed terror was lighting up like a fire. But something else was happening too. Her prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain that handled conscious thought, was not shutting down. It was working harder than ever. She was not fighting the fear. She was processing it. "Increase intensity," Ambassador Krixveth ordered. The resonance master obeyed. The projectors hummed louder. Maria's body shook. Her breathing became ragged. The tears flowed faster. But she did not scream. She did not beg. She did not collapse. "More," Krixveth demanded. "Give her everything." The resonance master hesitated. "Ambassador, these levels have killed test subjects before. They have never been used in competition. I do not care." "Break her!" The projectors screamed with power. Fear beyond anything the Varanthi had ever generated flooded through the small white room. Maria Santos felt it all. Every terrible moment of her life came rushing back. The Snow Polo collapse. 9 days trapped in the rubble. Listening to her husband's last breath through 3 meters of concrete. Holding her daughter's hand while she died of injuries that no doctor could fix. The funerals. The empty chairs at holiday dinners. The grandchild she had buried just 3 years ago. The fear merged with the grief and the pain and the loss until it became something that should have destroyed her completely. Instead, she opened her eyes. She stood up. She walked toward the projectors. "What is she doing?" The resonance master asked, his crystal voice high with confusion. "No creature walks toward the source of fear." Maria stopped in front of the largest projector. Her face was wet with tears. Her body was trembling. Every nerve in her being was telling her to run. She placed her hand on the projector and looked directly into the observation gallery. "You want to know about fear?" she said, her voice barely a whisper that the translation systems carried across the galaxy. "Let me tell you about fear." She took a breath. "I held my daughter's hand while she died. I listened to my husband take his last breath while I could not reach him. I have lived with fear every single day for 40 years. Fear of loss. Fear of pain. Fear of being alone. Fear that I would wake up one morning and not be able to find a reason to keep going." She looked at Ambassador Krixveth with eyes that had seen more pain than he could imagine. "Your machines can make me feel fear, but you cannot make me stop, because I am human. And we have learned something that your species never understood." "What?" Krixveth demanded. "What could you possibly have learned?" "That fear is not the enemy." Maria's voice grew stronger. "Fear is just a feeling, and feelings cannot kill us unless we let them. We can be terrified and still move forward. We can be in agony and still do what needs to be done. We can lose everything and still find a reason to wake up tomorrow." She pressed harder against the projector, leaning into the fear instead of away from it. "You think this makes me weak? You think these tears are a sign of defeat? No, these tears are proof that I am still alive, still feeling, still human." She smiled through her tears. "Is that all you have?" The resonance master pushed every projector to maximum output. Levels that should have killed any living being flooded through Maria's body. She stood in the heart of manufactured terror, feeling everything hiding from nothing, and she did not fall. 1 minute passed. Then 5. Then 30. The projectors began to overheat. Warning lights flashed across the control panels. The resonance master had to reduce power or risk destroying the equipment. Maria Santos remained standing. After 1 hour, Ambassador Krixveth left the observation gallery without a word. After 2 hours, the resonance master shut down the projectors entirely. There was no point in continuing. The human had won. The final score was 4-3. Humanity had won the trial of 7. Director Chen Wei-lin stood before the Grand Assembly the next day to deliver humanity's closing statement. The walls of the great hall were glowing gold, reflecting the mood of victory. "You measured us against your strengths and found us wanting," she said to the assembled representatives of 847 species. "Your crystals think faster than our brains. Your bodies survive where ours fail. Your memories last for centuries while ours fade in decades." She paused and looked around the hall. "But you made a mistake. You dared us. Humans are not the strongest species in the galaxy. We are not the fastest or the smartest or the most advanced. We are fragile and short-lived and prone to destroying ourselves. But we are also stubborn. We do not know when to quit. We climb mountains because they are there. We cross oceans because we want to know what is on the other side. We face certain death because the alternative is surrender." She turned to look directly at Ambassador Krixveth. "You can beat us in tests of speed. You can beat us in tests of memory. You can beat us in any single measure you choose. But you cannot break us, because breaking requires giving up. And humans have forgotten how to give up. We have survived ice ages and plagues and wars that should have wiped us out 100 times. Not because we are mighty, but because we are too stupid to know when we are beaten. Because when someone tells us something is impossible, we hear it as a challenge." She smiled. "So thank you, Ambassador Krixveth. Thank you for reminding us who we are. Thank you for giving us impossible odds and certain defeat. Thank you for daring us. And let this serve as a lesson to everyone in this hall, to everyone watching across the galaxy. You can outthink us, outrun us, outlast us in any single contest, but never, ever dare us. Because humans do not respond to dares with caution. We respond with everything we have. And that is something your calculations will never account for." The hall erupted into sound. Some species cheered. Some sat in stunned silence. Some began talking rapidly among themselves, reconsidering everything they thought. They knew about the young species from the small blue planet at the edge of the galaxy dot in the centuries that followed. The phrase, "never dare a Terran," became common wisdom across Concord space. Humanity never sought to conquer the stars or dominate other species. They did not need to. They had earned something far more valuable than power. They had earned respect, and the galaxy learned that humans were not dangerous because of what they could do. They were dangerous because of what they refused to stop doing. No matter the odds, no matter the cost, no matter what anyone said was impossible. That was what it meant to be human, and that was why you never, ever dared them.